Blackwood Marsh did not welcome intrusion. It simply waited. The wanderer planted his boot, and the earth groaned, a thick, sucking sound that traveled up his leg. He shifted his weight, but the slurry beneath him gave way, pulling him deeper into the muck until his calves were submerged in freezing, stagnant water. He pulled his leg free with a sharp, wet snap and took a breath. The air tasted of rot and ancient, wet wood. There was no wind here, only the heavy, suffocating stillness that pressed against his eardrums. To his left, a dead cypress rose like a skeletal hand, its roots coiled with bioluminescent fungi that bled a sickly, pale light into the fog. Every step was a battle against the terrain itself. He moved cautiously, testing the ground with the heel of his boot, but the marsh seemed to shift under his presence, turning from solid ground to treacherous soup without warning. He stopped, wiped the dampness from his face, and scanned the horizon. The fog hung thick and gray, hiding whatever lay ahead, yet the stench of decay grew stronger with every forward movement. He was deep in now, and the path behind him had already vanished into the gray haze. A low hum began to rise from the reeds. It started as a mimicry of wind, but the sound solidified into words. They were not spoken, but projected directly into the space around him, mentioning names he had long buried. The wanderer stopped, his hand dropping to the hilts at his side. He turned, but the voices moved with him, circling just out of sight. Then, the marsh floor began to boil. Thick, black sludge erupted upward, pulling tangled roots and waterlogged debris into humanoid silhouettes. These shapes did not stand. They flowed, shifting their mass as they rose from the mire. Their eyes flared with a sharp, emerald light that cut through the fog. The wanderer stepped back, but the ground behind him surged, cutting off his retreat. They moved with a fluid, predatory grace, closing the distance in silence. He drew his twin blades, the steel ringing out with a sharp metallic bite that failed to pierce the unnatural quiet. They were no longer just shadows. They were a ring of solid, malevolent intent. He swung, his blades slicing through the mud-bound forms, but the muck simply parted and reformed. The circle tightened, and the voices grew louder, pressing against his skull like a physical weight. Steel met muck in a frantic, losing rhythm. For every limb he severed, the sludge bubbled and knitted itself back together, thicker and faster. The voices in his mind became a roar, screaming failures from his past, trying to anchor him to the spot. He lunged, his blades carving a path through the suffocating mass, and forced his way toward a break in the trees. He stumbled over a submerged root and looked up. The fog parted to reveal the source of the rot. A gargantuan, ancient tree stood half submerged in the center of the mire. Its bark was a grotesque, living gallery of faces, frozen in eternal, silent screams. A rhythmic, sickly green light pulsed from its core, casting long, twisted shadows that seemed to reach for him. As he stared, the tree's roots thrashed through the water like massive, blind serpents. He felt the cold touch of the tree's influence, a psychic weight that drained his resolve. It was not just a plant. It was a predator, a harvester of fear, and it was feeding on him. The wanderer planted his feet, ignored the screeching of the mud-born shapes behind him, and locked his gaze on the pulsating center of the wood. The nightmare had a heart, and it was watching him back. The wanderer didn't wait. He charged. As the mud-born guardians lunged, he slammed his boot into a cluster of fungi at the base of a cypress. A cloud of fine, blinding spores erupted, coating the air in a thick, glowing haze. The guardians faltered, their emerald light dimming as they struck at empty air. He vaulted over a thrashing root, his blades singing in the damp air. He reached the central trunk, his feet skidding on the slick, pulsating wood. Above him, the tree let out a sound like splintering timber and tortured metal, a roar that vibrated through his very teeth. Massive roots whipped out of the water, aiming to crush him into the mire, but he ducked, the air pressure of the strike pulling at his skin. He saw it, the main artery, a thick, pulsating root anchoring the mass to the marsh floor. He gathered his weight, drove both blades into the fiber with a singular, desperate motion, and twisted. The root snapped. A violent tremor rocked the entire marsh. A shockwave of pure silence rippled outward, flattening the fog. The green light at the core flickered once, twice, and then vanished. The mud-born shapes disintegrated, collapsing into inert, heavy sludge that sank back into the dark water. The silence was not empty. It was heavy, like a held breath. The wanderer pulled his blades from the severed root and stepped back, his chest heaving with every ragged intake of air. He leaned against a nearby cypress, his weight dragging him down until he sat in the mud. His hands shook. He looked up at the trunk. The green luminescence had vanished, leaving the wood dull and gray. Yet, the faces remained. They were still carved deep into the bark, eyes fixed in that same eternal, sightless stare. He reached out to touch a jagged edge of wood, but pulled his hand back. The marsh did not feel cleansed. It felt hollow. He stood up, his boots sinking into the soft, yielding earth, and began the slow trudge toward the edge of the fog. He did not look back. He did not need to. The water dripped from the branches, a steady, rhythmic cadence that echoed his own fading heartbeat. He pushed through the reeds, leaving the heart of the marsh behind him. He reached the solid ground of the forest fringe and stopped, listening. From deep within the mist, a faint, rhythmic pulse began to stir again. The wanderer turned toward the horizon and walked into the dark, leaving the mystery to wait for the next set of footsteps.